I would like to acknowledge that we're on the territories of the Mohawk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Algonquin peoples. As mentioned, this panel has been organized by Greenpeace Canada and Rising Tide Toronto. I work for Greenpeace. I'm an Actions and Training Coordinator, and also I'm part of Rising Tide Toronto. It's a small direct action group. So obviously, you know, Greenpeace has a very long history of, that helps. Yeah. Greenpeace has a long history of engaging in direct action and is now looking to do more solidarity work with Indigenous communities. And Rising Tide Toronto has been engaged in direct actions, particularly around Line 9. It's a tar sands pipeline, and doing a lot of Indigenous solidarity work. So these two groups together have brought you this panel. I just wanted to mention that folks from the Unistoten camp in northern so-called BC also were invited and wanted to come and were almost coming, but they were really busy with their action camp and a lot of other things to hold down this camp that's been going on for about 5 years, and they're stopping numerous pipelines by having physical cabins in the way of these pipelines, and so they're doing amazing work. And I also want to acknowledge that there are many other blockades and direct actions happening right now. There's actions at Lilu Island. There was Maddie Lee Camp. And so, you know, just acknowledging that there are many other communities that are engaged in direct action, but we're very lucky to have a few people here representing communities that are engaged in direct action. And also, of course, we have to acknowledge that direct action is something that's been used ever since contact, and maybe it wasn't even called direct action, it was just a way for communities to defend themselves. And so there's a very long history of what we are now calling direct action, that is essentially land defense, and so acknowledging that there's a rich history there, and we're going to hear about some of the current struggles, the more current struggles today. So I will read the bios of our speakers. To my left is Vanessa Gray. Vanessa is a 23-year-old Anishinaabe from the Aamjiwnaang First Nation, located in Canada's Chemical Valley. Vanessa has been working with community members to bring awareness to the health issues resulting from her reserve's toxic surroundings. She is an organizer with ASAP, Aamjiwnaang, and Sarnia Against Pipelines. Our next speaker is Berta. She is a member of the Civil Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations of Honduras, or COPINH, as you may know, and from the Honduran Women Human Rights Defenders Network. She is Berta Cáceres' daughter, Earth and Life Defender, who was murdered last March because of her opposition to hydroelectric Agua Zarca and Rio Blanco. She is demanding of the international community justice for her mother and for other members of the COPINH, and she continues her feminist, indigenous, and environmental fight. We're very lucky to have her from Honduras. Next to her left is Judy de Silva. She is a mother of 5 children who is looking for a solution to the mercury poisoning in the river system in her community of Grassy Narrows First Nation. She was awarded the Michael Sattler Peace Prize in Germany in recognition of her lifelong work to advocate for her community and environmental protection through peaceful, nonviolent direct action. Judy lives in Grassy Narrows and suffers the effects of mercury poisoning in a minor way. She is the Grassy Narrows Community Health Coordinator since 2014, working on the mercury poisoning issues in her community. And to her left is Silvia McAdam. She is from Treaty 6 lands in what is now called Canada. Silvia is from the Zuñiga Nation. She has her Juris Doctorate from the University of Saskatchewan and a bachelor's degree in human justice from the University of Regina. Silvia is co-founder of a global grassroots Indigenous-led movement called Idle No More. Silvia is also a co-founder of One House, Many Nations campaign that designs off-the-grid sustainable mini homes to address and raise awareness about the unacceptable proportions of homelessness, especially amongst Indigenous and original peoples. So, really incredible women here, an all-women panel too, which is really nice. And I will hand it over to Vanessa Gray to start us off.
So Ani, Boju, Vanessa Gray, Indigenous, Aamjiwnaang Donjiba, Anishinaabe Nindao, Makwan Indodam. I introduced myself in my original language of the Anishinaabe people in Ojibwe, just to say that I'm from Aamjiwnaang, I'm Anishinaabe, and I come from the Bear Clan. And I just want to thank you all for being here today to listen to this panel. And thank you for all coming, those who are on the panel and those who organized this morning. So, I come from the southwestern Ontario, and the Anishinaabe people originally once shared territory throughout the Great Lakes. So before borders and the petrochemical industries, the Anishinaabe people used the waterways as a way of travel and trade, and that's the way we transported ourselves. And so the water has always been should I pause? Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. No. So more than just fishing, the Anishinaabe people use the Great Lakes for travel and just our way of life, and we migrated around the Great Lakes, and this is how our people survived long before colonialism. We have depended on these water sources for the same water sources that we continue to threaten today. Now my territory is home to corporations such as Shell and Suncor, Imperial Oil, and Enbridge, and my reserve is in the middle of a place called the Chemical Valley, where they refine oil, including tar sands oil. They transport it using trains and pipelines and boats through the St. Clair River now. And with such a heavy presence of industry, my community has been named the worst air in Canada from National Geographic. There has been studies done on the skewed sex ratio due to the changes within pregnant women living in the middle of the Chemical Valley in my community. The health impacts in Aamjiwnaang are not subtle. Cancer is very present within the community. Children with respiratory problems is not unusual. And with the facilities so close to our homes, the danger isn't only in the fact that we live next to these facilities. The danger is that these facilities continue to spill and release toxic chemicals into the air and water on a continuous basis. So the violence doesn't end after the refineries are built or after these treaties have been broken. It is on a daily basis that we're exposed to carcinogens that include benzene, which are cancer-causing chemicals. It's a challenge to to face industry as it's been sitting on our territory since the 70s. Since oil has been found in Canada, they've been expanding and growing in my territory. It's not an easy battle once our environment has been poisoned and our bodies have been exposed to these chemicals. However, community members are still, we still have concerns and we still have a right to a safe environment. And the way that we can achieve this is by holding companies accountable, for holding not only companies and the government accountable, but all Canadians too, because Canadians need to understand that there was a demand for these products, and these products continue to be produced right next door to to my reserve, to my home and my community and my family. So what we are working on in the community right now is educational awareness and using tools such as bringing people in to talk about what it is that they're refining within these toxic refineries and how it's impacting us. And it's not the Ministry of Environment that's holding industry accountable. The government continues to protect these companies, even though that they continue to release into the environment. And there's over 60 high-emitting facilities within the 50-kilometer radius around my community. So it's not one company that we're faced with. It's like a few multinational companies that are sitting right next door who have a lot of money and power and who have been there since the 70s. It's important to look at the land that the refineries sit on as sacred, because my ancestors have walked on that land for much longer than industry has been there. And in order to reclaim the land, we must connect with the land. And our health and our bodies are a reflection of the health of our environment. And so in order for the community to move forward with any solution, we must be fully aware and educated about our own bodies and how that's impacted by our environment. And so this group that I'm a part of, it's called Aamjiwnaang and Sarnia Against Pipelines. We've been hosting toxic tours annually for the last 4 or 5 years now. We host toxic tours to invite people to feel the impacts of industry that Aamjiwnaang, communities like Aamjiwnaang feel on a daily basis from chemical industries. And so we have flyers up here. I can pass them out for our website and more information on my community. And what I'll do is I'll end with keeping in mind for everyone that's listened to my story now that my community is just an example of many Indigenous communities across Canada and across the world. And it's totally self-determination which is going to create any change within the Indigenous communities. And this is why we need support and solidarity, because it's going to come, the change is going to come within the communities to fight back against industry. This is why Indigenous communities need to bond together, and this is why we need Indigenous solidarity to keep our fights a focus for industry, because we want industry to feel uncomfortable. Good. We got that part. You heard that part. So thank you for coming today, and I'll end it there. Thank you.
Bueno, muy buenos días. Para mí es un placer poder compartir con ustedes. Creo que, bueno, ya me presenté, yo vengo del pueblo Lenca. Decirles que nosotras tendríamos muchas cosas que contarles, pero vamos a tratar como de contar como una de las muchas realidades que tenemos en nuestro país. Quisiera empezar como desde lo pequeño para luego hablar como de lo más grande y contarles en primer lugar sobre el proyecto Aguasarca, un proyecto hidroeléctrico que se construye en la zona suroccidental de Honduras, que es de donde yo vengo. Decirles que bueno, este proyecto es emblemático en el sentido de que agrupa todos los fenómenos que pueden encerrar la construcción de proyectos que son rechazados por las poblaciones, pero que se imponen a pesar de las luchas de resistencia de las comunidades. Entonces, primero contarles que este proyecto es uno de los muchos cientos que se dieron en nuestro país luego del golpe militar del año 2009. Este golpe, que tuvo el propósito verdadero de acelerar el modelo extractivista en nuestro país, ha causado muchos efectos negativos que obviamente ha llevado al límite que tiene que ver con el asesinato de muchas personas que están en defensa de los territorios y contra todos estos proyectos de muerte. Decirles que Aguasarca fue una concesión dada en el marco del golpe de Estado. Luego fue ratificada por el Congreso Nacional junto con muchísimos otros proyectos que también tenían que ver con la extracción minera, con la construcción de zonas especiales de desarrollo económico, con proyectos de venta de oxígeno y también con la construcción de proyectos de energía solar. Entonces nosotras también creemos que estos proyectos desmienten todo el tema de energías verdes que ahora se promulga en muchos espacios internacionales como la alternativa energética, y sigue demostrando que estos proyectos están violentando el tema central, que es los derechos de los pueblos. Entonces, Aguasarca es una represa que no es una mega represa, no es, digamos, tan grande, pero que es construida por una empresa nacional en la que su gerente general es una persona de la inteligencia militar del país y que estudió en la escuela militar de la West Point de los Estados Unidos. Los dueños de este proyecto son una de las familias más poderosas de toda la región centroamericana, que son la familia Atala, y los financiadores originales de este proyecto eran, entre algunos, el Banco Mundial y la ejecutora, la empresa china constructora de represas más importante del mundo, que es la empresa Sinohydro, y que desde el principio este proyecto era inconsulto y dado en el marco de un golpe de Estado, lo que lo hacía ilegal y obviamente ilegítimo. En el 2010 comenzó a llegar la maquinaria que estaba rompiendo la montaña para construir una carretera, de la que la comunidad no sabía para qué era. Las empresas compraron a los alcaldes que tienen jurisdicción en el área de construcción y lo que hicieron es falsificar las firmas de los miembros de la comunidad para decir que ellos estaban de acuerdo con el proyecto, ya que en Honduras es obligatoria la consulta previa, libre e informada que se establece en el convenio 169. Entonces, bueno, desde el principio la comunidad se dio cuenta de que se trataba de un proyecto hidroeléctrico que la comunidad no quería, porque las comunidades indígenas en Honduras sí ponen en cuestionamiento todo el tema de desarrollo, de que realmente muchas comunidades dicen que para vivir bien y vivir felices no necesitan energía eléctrica, otras sí, otras no, pero lo que sí no se permite es la construcción de manera inconsulta y sobre un río sagrado como lo es el río Hualcarque. Decirles que la comunidad comenzó una lucha muy fuerte y como estamos hablando también de acciones directas y de todo esto, entonces yo creo que las comunidades lo que hicieron en primer lugar es bloquear la carretera para impedir que la maquinaria pudiera entrar a construir los planteles, que es como la zona de la infraestructura, y así obstaculizar el avance del proyecto. Con esta forma de resistencia, la respuesta fue una tremenda presencia militar y policial que también se ha acelerado desde el golpe de Estado. Esto llevó a reprimir a la comunidad. Sin embargo, ellos sostuvieron por meses enteros esta toma de carretera que realmente fue efectiva para obstaculizar el proyecto. Luego lo que hicieron es construir una carretera alterna por el otro lado de la montaña y así continuar el proyecto. Entonces, en el año 2013, uno de los líderes comunitarios en un ejercicio de control territorial fue asesinado por un militar del batallón de ingenieros. Pues este hecho fue sumamente denunciado por nuestra organización, que es el COPINH, y fue tan fuerte también el apoyo internacional que se tuvo en este momento que el proyecto se detuvo por un tiempo y el Banco Mundial y Sinohidro decidieron retirarse del proyecto, ya que había generado todo un proceso de violencia que ya era incontrolable en ese año. Luego se empiezan a hacer monitoreos por parte de la empresa de quiénes podían ser los nuevos financiadores del proyecto, y entre ellos ahora se encontraban el Banco de Desarrollo Holandés, el FMO, y el Banco de Desarrollo Finlandés, pero también el Banco Centroamericano de Integración Económica, que tiene, digamos, una inversión muy grande en la zona centroamericana. Decirles que desde ese año mi mamá, en función de coordinadora general de la organización, les escribió cartas a los bancos diciendo que no financiaran este proyecto porque era un proyecto de muerte. Para ese año ya habían muerto la compañera Paula González, el compañero William y un niño que se llamaba Michael, en el contexto de la lucha solo contra este proyecto hidroeléctrico. A pesar de eso, los bancos decidieron financiar, diciendo que era un proyecto de energía limpia, que iba a generar empleo para la comunidad, energía para la comunidad, pero realmente es uno de los proyectos para alimentar el corredor de producción de energía del que Honduras forma parte. Entonces, aparte de todo esto, yo creo que lo que queda de manifiesto es el papel también que tienen los gobiernos para legitimar todos estos proyectos y para reprimir a las poblaciones que tienen una lucha de frente a estos proyectos de muerte. Decirles también que esta comunidad de Río Blanco, que es una comunidad de gran resistencia, gran coraje, que siempre tuvo una gran firmeza en saber que si se paraba el río, si se bloqueaba el río, se iba a matar a los espíritus que habitan en ese río. Que la lucha continuó a pesar de que la empresa lo que hizo es cambiarse de lugar en la construcción, pasarse al otro lado del río y decir que ese ya no era territorio indígena, por tanto no había que hacer consulta, por tanto entonces ya no se estaba en un territorio sagrado, pero era sobre el mismo río. Y entonces la comunidad comenzó a tener a continuar la lucha, pero también se empezaron a ver divisiones porque ellos metían dinero para comprar a líderes comunitarios, para comprar a personas que empezaran a amedrentar la lucha de las comunidades. Y siguió significando lo mismo. En toda esta lucha, pues la empresa lo que hizo es judicializar a los líderes de la organización, entre ellos mi mami, a los que se les acusaba, por ejemplo, de usurpación de la tierra, de coacción y de pérdidas, y de causar pérdidas a la empresa. A la final de 2 procesos judiciales, que también fueron respaldados por la comunidad internacional, se logró que ella saliera, digamos, ilesa del proceso. Pero ellos se dieron cuenta de que a pesar de la criminalización que hacían a la organización, a pesar de que habían llevado a tribunales a ella y a otras personas, no se paraba la lucha. Entonces nosotros creemos que su asesinato hace 5 meses fue un intento para destruir a la organización y para destruir la lucha que es muy fuerte. Decirles, bueno, que este solo es uno de los 51 proyectos hidroeléctricos que estamos enfrentando en la zona suroccidental, porque nuestra zona es una zona de montañas, de bosque, productora de agua, donde nacen los ríos más importantes de Honduras, y que también vemos una serie de fenómenos que están, pues obviamente, muy ligados al golpe de Estado, como lo son otros proyectos extractivos y también todo el proceso de militarización. Con el asesinato de mi mami, también lo que hemos visto es un gran clima de impunidad que permite a las empresas asesinar a las personas sabiendo que puede que no pase nada porque las asesinen, pero también hemos sido totalmente excluidas de todo el proceso de investigación y entendemos que la institucionalidad hondureña tuvo un papel muy grande en permitir e incluso tener una alianza con la empresa. Entonces nosotros decimos que no podemos creer en una investigación de una institucionalidad que la persiguió, que también la criminalizó y que ahora por la demanda internacional resulta que sí quiere la justicia y que sí quiere la verdad. Entonces hemos demandado una comisión independiente de investigación que nos permita llegar a conocer la verdad de quiénes son los verdaderos asesinos, aunque nosotros tenemos la claridad de que la empresa tiene la responsabilidad, pero también poder nombrar con nombre cómo la institucionalidad hondureña también ha participado en este crimen y la responsabilidad que tienen los bancos internacionales y las empresas que sabían lo que estaba pasando, sin embargo no les importó. Entonces ahora tenemos como 2 luchas, la lucha por la defensa de los territorios que vamos a continuar, que no nos van a parar, que no nos van a amedrentar, pero también la lucha por la justicia, sabiendo que si este crimen queda impune, pues les estamos dando vía libre a las empresas, a los gobiernos, para que sigan asesinando a otras personas.
My name is Judy de Silva from Grassy, Ontario, and I come here for water, and I was trying to ask Lana if she could get this PowerPoint up. Like it's just pictures of my community, and then you'll know where we live. But I don't think you can get it now.
There was an attachment.
I resent it.
Oh, you resent it?
Yeah. But anyways, we live the center, almost the center of Turtle Island. And if you know where Winnipeg is, that's where we're close to there. And my people, there's 800 people in my community. And like what these women were saying, we are being attacked by industry in all ways. And we suffer the consequences of the industrial extraction. And when we come to places like this, it's because we seek solidarity from people like you, because our population base are so small, and Grassy now is only 800 people. And just coming to this university, I see how big it is. That's probably how big my reserve is. And but in reality, our land base is, they say, 25,000 square kilometers around. But because of encroachment and resource extraction, people really wanting the trees, the water, the minerals, we live in a tiny piece of land. And our people are brainwashed to feel that we need to live in that little piece of land. And it's through colonialism, through historical, like residential school, brainwashing of our people. We feel like we have to stay in that little piece. And then there's some of us that have broken free, like my sister Chickadee up there, my daughter up there. These are like the generation that we're trying to break free from this brainwashing. I'm not going to talk about a sad story, but what I wanted to talk about mostly was like how can we work together? Because I've told my story many times of Grassy Narrows, where 10 tons of mercury was dumped in the English Wabagoon River system. So 10 tons is 9,000 kilograms. And that was dumped in the 1960s, which is when I was born. I suffer mercury poisoning, and I feel it getting worse in me. And that's the result of resource extraction. The paper mill that dumped the mercury in our river system, it was to make paper, to make wood so people can build houses. And then the mercury was used to process that paper. And then we suffered it. One of the things I found out, I'm in the mercury working group with the government right now, is one of the things I found out is in Dryden, Ontario, where the mill is, they usually had filters on the culverts where they would like try and keep some sludge out. Well, in Dryden it was just open. So it's like a free-for-all dumping of the mercury right into the river system with no regard for the life of my people. And there was a Japanese doctor that came to Grassy Narrows in 1975, the late Dr. Harada. He studied my people, and he said we suffered effects of mercury poisoning. And he said it just straightforward. We're suffering from mercury poisoning. But in the government in Canada, there has been a strong denial of us even being poisoned. We have to go through doctor testing to see if we are poisoned. And I was thinking 9,000 kilograms of mercury in the water, how can somebody not be poisoned? And these are the things I'm still working on. We have a doctor here, Dr. Donna Mergler. Can you raise your hand? She's a mercury specialist in Canada. She's worked in Brazil, and now she's working with us. So these are things that we've learned from being like fighting to protect the land, fighting to stop the destruction on our land, to protect the water. It's never ending. And then we find rich resources like Donna, and then our own people that are river specialists, and forming alliances with different women of different nations, different people. Stuart over there, can you raise your hand? He's at the Christian Peacemaker teams, and they still come to Grassy, and they still come and work with our people. And I feel like that's the part that we need to work on now. Like, I'm not gonna tell you like all the troubles, but I wanna be able to talk about how can you help the Indigenous people, and how can you open your eyes and look in your own backyard and help those ones that are suffering right now. And it could be in a small way wherever you work, or whatever you're doing, like to consider that there's people suffering because of your consumerism needs. And it's us that suffer. But our voice is so small that that's why we come to these big cities. You amplify our voices. A man came from Ignace, Ontario, about 2 weeks ago, and he said that Southern Ontario is looking to bury 40,000 truckloads of nuclear waste in Ignace. And that's nuclear waste from Southern Ontario. That's for the electricity for this. And they want to bury it close by where I live. And the watershed will flow towards us again. And they're already building a multi-million-dollar building. And so these are things that are getting developed. Even a gold mine is being built north of Dryden, and it's near our river system again. And the tailings pond is going to be as big as Mount Polly. And Mount Polly just had the big break, was it last year? 2 years ago? That the Mount Polly Dam broke and effectively poisoned the river of the salmon and the water. And just a few days ago, how do you say it, please? Squepnik people had an anniversary, and then right now, if you look on Facebook, they're getting arrested, they're being treated roughly. So these are like on the land defense, the Unistoten, and Silvia McAdam here, she's fighting really hard to protect the forest. Like just putting yourself like an extra mile and say, how can I help? And maybe even teaching your nephews your children, your relatives, that this is real, and it's all our planet together. It's not an Indigenous issue, it's all of us. And sometimes in Grassy, that's what we face a lot of, is racism and violence on our people. And even in my home community, a young girl named Elena COPINH was found dead in the water. And for us, it was very suspicious because the search team looked there and she wasn't there before. And then when they found her, when the water was thawing out, they said, we looked there, she wasn't there. So there's these suspicious deaths. That's what we face. Even in Saskatchewan, I saw a young boy got shot because they had a broken tire and they stopped by a farmland and then he got shot. Just last week or this week? This week. This week, the young boy got shot. So these are things that we face, and so when you're in the mall or somewhere and you see a person of color being treated very badly, we need you non-Indigenous people to stand for us. Stop the racism and help us fight to protect our water. Don't wait for us. Do it too. Because I think that's what will shock the Canadian government, is when you guys, like, imagine 1 million non-Native people doing a march with no Indigenous people in there. Mr. Trudeau would be in shock. If it's just you guys, not us. And I know you do stand with us. That's why you're here today, and I acknowledge that. I thank you for being here. And Lana had questions here for me, but I didn't answer them. But I wanted you to see the slideshow, just visual. And these are from 2002, and we've had the blockade there since 2002, and now there's 16-foot trees there they're GMO trees, genetically modified trees, but they're 16 feet high now. And they're so planted close together that the moose can't get through. We have no more moose. The moose have moved away. So even though there's a forest, there's people tree planting, there's still the negative of it, but I just wanted you to see it that. And these are the young people. We're outnumbered by young people. So thank you for listening, and I'll be around till Sunday. When is everything over? Tomorrow? Today? I missed everything. Okay, I'm here till Sunday if you want to visit me. Thank you.
As Lana said, my name is Silvia McAdam. Maga nihtani hioan, ibini hiopi hoyan, anotin na naskumon steaks imanto ipi sapkapi so imguya ka so imgui, minoka ka nioptu gisgo na naskumao, minakigawi noski. I sit here before you today because I was one of the hidden children when the priests and the Indian agent came for the children. My parents wouldn't allow me to go to residential school. My parents didn't go. They were the hidden children. My grandparents didn't go because their parents hid them away when the Indian agent and the priests came for the children. So I'm very fortunate to have grown up in the language of my people and the culture and the land. So I also benefit from the colonizers' education because I am a lawyer. And in saying that, most of you have heard of Idle No More, right? Idle No More. We made a stand against Bill C-45, but of course, Idle No More is not a new resistance. It's not. It's generations of our people making a stand since the colonizers came here. Now, when Bill C-45 was being introduced into the parliament, we followed it. Like the good little lawyers that we were at that time, we followed it, thinking that if we made a petition and if we went and talked to the people and if we had a conversation with the colonial government, we would stop it. And that how could they remove the protection of water? Water is our life, it's life. But, and this is on record, in December when it went to the Senate said, we'll deliberate on it next week, we'll rest tonight. And I think that was on a Tuesday. And the rest of us lawyers, we're like, oh, okay, we have a week, we can rally, we'll get the people, we'll talk about it and get the Senate to change their mind. We're in Saskatchewan, what is called Saskatchewan now. We woke up Wednesday morning, it was passed. How is that possible? In a democratic nation, it was passed within a half hour. The Royal Assent signed off on it, and they removed the protection of water. And I think that was a turning point for me, having a legal education. I always knew, as an Indigenous person, the original people of these lands, that something is very wrong all the time. But that really opened my eyes for me. How many of you have heard of the underlying title of the Crown? How many law students are in the audience? You're going to hear about it. Underlying title of the Crown. Beautiful, hey? You know what that is? Anybody? That's the doctrine of discovery.
I was just going to say that.
That's the doctrine of discovery, but they're not going to call it that because that's absurd, right? I went to old Montreal and I went to the port. It was almost like I can still hear whispers of the colonizers making decisions on the bounty of my people's scalp. And I went to that port, and Jacques Cartier, his name is written there, and he's responsible for putting that sword into the soil. And in law, it's called the presumed sovereignty of the Crown crystallized. Right? And that's the doctrine of discovery. Why is it important today and why am I talking about it? Because every time we go to court, and we have one, but every time we've gone to the colonizer's court, the colonizer says, this is our land. Underlying title of the Crown gives us authority and jurisdiction to go into your lands, into my people's lands, because we own it now. We're going to take the trees without your consent. We'll take the water without your consent. But just so you don't die completely, we'll give you a little bit of money. So just to keep us barely alive in a state of perpetual poverty, How many of you here pay land tax? Right? Land tax? That's the doctrine of discovery. If you think you are not affected by it as white people, you are. Think about that. When Harper was in power, he was throwing words around like eminent domain. Remember that? We have eminent domain. That's the doctrine of discovery. Be aware of the language. When they say beautiful words like stakeholders, right? Willing partners. What they're saying is, if you don't follow the doctrine of discovery, if you're not a willing partner to it, then you are a terrorist. Right? Watch out for language. Remember when the government came back from the UN and said, we are going to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People according to our charter and according to our Constitution. Do you know what the charter is? The doctrine of discovery. You know when Cabot, when he came across that ocean and he had that sword was blessed by the Pope, and it was called the Charter. Right? Connect this. Know your history. Know your history. I know your history. So every time they come for our trees and they put it under the guise of consultation and consent, it is meaningless. Because at the end of the day, they tell us that they'll take our trees no matter what, because of the doctrine of discovery. It's absurd. Today, it is absurd, because it is like I have fairy dust in my hands. Fairy dust. And I want you to believe that I have fairy dust and it gives me power. Would you believe me? Well, that's the doctrine of discovery. And that's the basis of all Canadian law. Everything about it. The racism, the white privilege, your education system, your social services system that apprehends and takes our children at epidemic proportions. Our children are in care more than how many were taken during the Indian residential school era. How do you benefit from it? How do you benefit from it? I'll tell you. The trees that are taken where I am, called Saskatchewan now, such a bad translation of that word. In my language, it's called Sokichuansipi. How did they get Saskatchewan out of that? How do you get Saskatchewan out of that? the trees that they take from my people's land pays for the maintenance and operation of the hospitals and the legislative buildings. Always track where the money goes. I'll leave you with two more things. Recently, Obama came here and met with Trudeau, and they had a falling out. They couldn't come to an agreement on the softwood lumber agreement. Remember that? Anybody recall that? Do you know why? I'm still researching it, but I'll share a little bit of what I found out. In the world stage, the nations make agreements, trade agreements, and they agree to sell lumber and other items of the world at a certain price. Canada can sell lumber cheaper than the US. You know why? Anybody know why? They sell lumber $1 less. They take the lumber and the trees from Indigenous people and they don't have to pay us. So we're subsidizing that, condemning my people in poverty as they steal our trees. That's only one resource. Imagine all the other resources. So our poverty generates a huge amount of jobs that you are probably working in, including social workers, the justice system. I won't go into that. All of you know that, right? So, on my people's land, they're taking the trees. My people's land is beautiful. It looks like that now. They've taken the trees. So, there's one little beautiful freshwater stream that flows from deep in the earth onto the land. It's beautiful. I can go there anytime and drink from the water. We share that water with the animals. We share that water with the little people. Right? We share it with the little people because we're always connected to the spirit world. And now they're going to clear cut across the road from it. They violate even their own operating plans. They can get away with it because they depend on you to maintain the racism and the white privilege. And it works. It works. Brad Wall openly said when he got reelected, he openly stated, this is a victory for oil and gas. Saskatchewan is a very racist province, very racist. And they thrive on that. Many people have been killed. Many of my people have been killed there. A young man has just been shot point blank because they pulled into a private property owner because he had a flat tire and needed help. Always be aware of the language used by the colonizer, because we'll be criminalized even before we were known or to be judged. See the language in the media? He's a homeowner. He's a property owner. And he's a First Nations young man. Already that paints an image, right? Already that paints an image. Every time I walk into a store, I'm followed. Every time. In Saskatchewan, it's particularly worse. I don't want you to come away from this panel feeling guilty, because guilt is pointless, it's useless, it is not a place to begin a resistance or a revolution. We need you to witness our freedom, our liberation, and self-determination, to stand with us while we try to get that in this day and age. We want our freedom. I want to live long enough to see freedom for my people, because we don't have equality. We certainly don't have democracy. And it's time the world knows that. Thank you.